The topic tonight, cool fantasy magic systems. Spellwine magic, from the Vineart War Trilogy. Wine is magic. Now, if you groaned and already said sarcastically under your breath, ugh, come on, we already know, of course wine is magic. A friendly Catholic reminder here, getting drunk is a sin, so please, if that was your response, you might want to take another look at actually how much alcohol you are consuming. Who knows, maybe you want to give it up for Lent. The magic of this world is tied strictly to wine. The people who actually grow the grapes and make the wine, they are called Vinearts. So not everyone is a Vineart, and not every person who makes wine actually has magic. But, because you can grow grapes just for regular wine. But most importantly, the Vinearts, they grow the grapes and they make the spell wine with it. It doesn't mean, any old wine can work for any old purpose. This is kind of where the hard magic system comes in, and I thought this was cool. A certain type of grape that has a much darker purple color, grown in, let's say, temperate climates. You harvest that, you make wine out of that, and you can only infuse it with a certain type of magic. So, for example, the one I just mentioned might be, create raindrops or something like that. But then there's also wine that come from a lighter purple grape, grown in more subtropical temperatures with much more moisture than any other kind of grape. You make that into wine, and then it's heal wine. So if someone has a broken bone, the Vineart can take some of this wine, pour it on the wound, then kind of guide the magic to actually heal that wound. We love the fact that the author made wine magic, Now, for the record, we don't drink that much, and we don't even really like wine. Okay. Again, we really don't like wine. We really don't drink that much, but we read that, and we just had to get it. What? Did you think that was actually wine? No, that was lemonade and water. Oh, come on, I'm not gonna chug a whole glass of wine right on camera. Are you kidding? We have Chromaturgy from the Lightbringer series. In this fantasy world, with a kind of Victorian-era setting, magicians can absorb light and then turn it into physical matter. For those who are more scientifically inclined, humans have the ability to absorb light energy from waves on the electromagnetic spectrum and then transform it into physical matter, solid objects. The magicians are also called drafters in this magic system, and the actual physical matter that they make is called luxin. Each color has kind of different effects and different properties. When a drafter absorbs light, it has a different psychological effect on them, which is really cool. It's a costly magic system in essence. The common example you'll see in the books is green. If a drafter can absorb green light, the psychological effect they have is it makes them wild. It makes them kind of rebellious. They don't want to take orders, follow rules, that sort of thing. Green luxin. It's solid, but it's also kind of flexible. It's kind of like hard rubber. Orange, on the other hand, again, completely different color, completely different effect. If a drafter absorbs orange light, then they become very keenly emotionally aware of what's going on. And the orange luxin itself, it's basically kind of like grease, and it's oil. The drafters of this magic system. Not everyone can draft all the colors. Some can draft one, some can draft two, some can draft all of them. Chromaturgy from the Lightbringer series, our personal favorite fantasy magic system. So next up, Allomancy from the Mistborn books by Brent Sanderson. So in the world of the Mistborn, it's a world that has basically also kind of like a Victorian era setting. In this world, the magic system involves metal. So if you are a magician, that means you are an allomancer. The allomancer can take a vial of metal, and only certain metals, by the way. They swallow it, and then what they do is, quote, burn it. That's the term they use. They burn the metal that they have swallowed, and then that lets them do certain things. This is a hard magic system. Only certain metals can do certain things, and not every allomancer can actually burn every metal. If you're an allomancer, you can either burn one metal, or you can burn all of them. If you can burn all of them, then you're what's called a Mistborn. That's kind of how the title comes from. This is the symbol for steel. So if you're a Mistborn or an Allomancer who can burn steel, you take a vial of steel and then you would burn it. That lets you basically do a kind of a Jedi Force push move on anything metal that's nearby. If you're a Mistborn or an Allomancer who can burn tin, you would swallow the tin and then burn it, and then your senses are enhanced. You can see better, you can hear better, you can smell better, that sort of thing. It's really interesting because you'll get fight scenes where you'll have the Mistborn fight, and so you get to see them using all the kind of different kind of metals in various different combinations and ways. It's really cool, really creatively done. Highly recommended Mistborn. Fairy Magic from the Artemis Fowl series. If you've been watching RCT Geek, you'll know that back in last June, we did a couple of videos on Artemis Fowl. The books, yes, highly recommended. And then the movies, well, you can skip the movie. Trust me, it is not worth it. But again, I'm not going to go into that now. Artemis Fowl takes place in the modern day. It's an urban fantasy. There is our world that we all know and we live in, but then there's the other world. There's the world of the fairies, the fairy folk. They all live like deep underground. There's elves, there's dwarves, there's centaurs, there's trolls. Onko for later clarifies in some of the books that in essence the magic is basically just another form of energy. Another form of energy, just like heat. And spellcasting is in essence just the ability to manipulate energy. It's just very toned down, very simple, very easy to visualize. It's blue sparks. Basically magic looked just like simple blue sparks. The rest of the story, the rest of the characters and the books and the world building was so enjoyable. So this was really refreshing, really good. Like this was one of my first kind of like original fandoms, the Artemis Fowl fandom. So. And the final cool fantasy magic system that we want to mention tonight is Shamanism from the Poppy War series. The Poppy War series are actually a fairly new, fairly recent book series. It's the rights have been bought. One day in the future, we will probably get a visual adaptation of the Poppy War series. It might be, who knows, it might be a darker, Avatar The Last Airbender or something like that, but based on Chinese culture and history, this fantasy world. Shamanism in the real world from a Catholic perspective is obviously, but again, we're not going to get into that. However, we can enjoy shamanism in a simple fictional story. So, and the way it's done in this story is done really well. You have the real world here, and you have the kind of spiritual world, the world where all the gods, as they say, exist. And then there's the shaman. The shaman is the person who can kind of raise their consciousness to the kind of the spiritual dimension, spiritual world. They usually do it through drugs. Again, the Poppy War series is basically literal. There are drugs. That's why this is not a good book for kids. One of the reasons, as you'll find out. Shamanism will take drugs, they'll raise their mind, their consciousness to the spirit world, and then that's where they can call upon their god, the god that they're in connection with, and then they can release, in essence, the powers of the god into the real world. Now, the Poppy War series, very important. Yes, there is war. It's a lot of war, and the war is ugly. As we all know, war is bad, and this book certainly does not do anything to sugarcoat it. The main character is named Rin. She can call upon the Phoenix God. Phoenix God, so obviously it's going to involve fire. So basically, in essence, she calls upon the fire, she calls upon the Phoenix, and she could burn everything in her path. She could literally turn the whole world to ashes, because as soon as she calls upon the Phoenix can kind of take over. So that's why. So in essence, so this fantasy magic system, this is a soft magic system, it has serious consequences. In essence, shamans have to put a leash on a god. Not easy, again, and it's common, and they struggle, and there are problems. There are a few other shamans in there. There's one who can control winds, there's one who can turn into a fox. I think the author did a good thing in not including too much of them. That raises the stakes for the main character, yes. But I would kind of get distracted if I was always getting small side adventures with the other shamans. But anyway, the magic system is cool. It's very refreshing for me, and this is, if you're looking for a book series that isn't based off feudal Europe or Victorian era England, this is a good one. The Poppy War series. Rebecce Kuang is the name of the author. Again, it's very new. The third book in the trilogy just came out very recently. So there we go. Shamanism from the Poppy War.